What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Dots here, and today I'm going to be discussing my first impressions of Elyon, a Korean MMORPG that is going to be released soon in the West. I got a chance to hop into their closed beta a couple weeks ago on the last day for a couple of hours. Huge shout out to Virtual Hex for giving me a beta key. And I just want to discuss with you guys today what I thought of the beta. As usual, with my first impressions videos, I'm going to be giving you guys a little bit of background on the game and then discuss the things that I liked, the things that I didn't, and then like a summary and where I think Elyon's going to go in the future. So kicking things off, guys, Elyon is a buy-to-play MMORPG with a microtransaction shop developed by Crafted and published by Kakao Games. The game technically has no level cap, but you do have a soft cap at around level 41, where the time to level up will dramatically increase. The game also does have a variety of classes that adhere to the Holy Trinity, including the Warlord, which is your tank class, the Mystic, which is your healer class, and then for DPS, you have Assassin, the Elementalist, and the Gunner. Now, when I hopped into the beta, the Slayer, which is another DPS class, wasn't available to play, but I imagine that it will be coming to the West at some point. The game also does have 4 races to choose from, with each class being playable by each race. The 4 races are Human, Elf, Ain, I'm not really sure how to pronounce this, E-I-N, and Orc. The quests in the game are all partially voice acted, with like the first line or first sentence of whatever someone is saying having a voice behind it, but the rest of it having no voiceover. I will say, though, from first impressions of the story, I did like it. I won't spoil it for anyone here, but there's a ton of great characters involved in the story, and you learn a lot about the in-game world. Overall, it's just a very solid intro, I think, into the game. Now, in terms of the end-game content, the game does have 5-player dungeons on the PvE side of things, but there are no raids. PvP-wise, the game is similar to games like Black Desert Online, where you have open-world PvP active at all times. But in this game, you do have 2 separate factions, the Antari and the Vulpin. The Vulpin are your governmental faction, while the Antari is the rebel faction who doesn't like how the government does things. But you can feel free to pause the video here if you'd like to kind of read the little blurbs from in-game about the different factions. But back to PvP, each faction has their own areas in Elyon. So if you are questing and doing things near the faction line or in your enemy's territory, the threat of being attacked by an enemy player is going to, definitely be there. You'll have to worry about PvP. But if you're deep in your own territory and kind of back more towards the top of your own zone or the bottom, depending on which side you're on, the threat of being attacked by enemy players is going to be significantly lower. The game does have a nauseating amount of PvP options, from an instanced PvP VE mode, instance arena, open world clan wars, faction siege, realm v realm, the open world conflicts I mentioned earlier, and more. The arena type game modes, for example, can be as low as 3v3, with the realm v realm battles hitting up to 150 versus 150 players. Now, do keep in mind, though, that none of these PvP modes have equalized, balanced stats, or like capped stats or anything like that. So players that are really geared are going to have an advantage. Most of these game modes, though, also do have leaderboards, but no elo type system. The highest ranking players in the faction v faction modes, though, can also obtain special titles and rewards for representing their faction well in battle. Elyon also does have player housing, which you'll need to kind of use for many of your crafting professions, because that's where the tables are going to be located. The game also does have a central auction house, various vehicles, mounts, and pets to collect, and more. The game also does have some auto-pathing, making it easier for you to get from place to place. So that's just going to kind of cover a little bit about Elyon, guys. I want to just give you all like a top-down view of the game so you have a rough idea of what it has to offer and what it includes. But now I'm going to go into my pros and cons list for my first impressions of the 4 to 5 hours I spent playing the game on the first Western closed beta test. Now, moving into my first pro, very easy to follow leveling experience. It is very, very easy to follow the main quest in the game and know where you should be going and what you should be doing during your leveling process, which I absolutely appreciate. The main quest has its own indicator. When you reach a certain point in the main quest that you would need a higher level to continue, the main quest stays in your quest log, but just shows you like, hey, you need to be level 25 to continue on the main quest. The game then directs you to an NPC in your area that has a ton of side quests. That NPC also has their own like, indicator or like a icon above their head. And then you pick up those quests, You do them, continue leveling, and then when you are hit the appropriate level for the main quest, you can then continue along that quest line. The entire leveling experience just feels really streamlined, and I never felt confused about where I should be going or what I should be doing, which I can't say for a lot of MMOs that have been coming out recently. Now, with that being said, the leveling process is really fast. I leveled for like 4 to 5 hours on the beta and hit level 33, and I wasn't like in a rush or anything. I was just kind of playing at my own pace. It did feel okay for Elyon specifically because it was nice to kind of have like a full skill bar worth of abilities and plenty of choices early on, but they definitely could afford to slow it down, like, because the pacing just felt really, really fast. Overall, I would also say the game had great tutorials. The game did a very solid job of introducing me into the game's systems as I naturally encountered them with well-placed tutorials baked into the quest, which I have been wanting to see more games do, so huge claps to Elyon for doing that. Also, character building in the game is absolutely fantastic. You have a lot of different skills at your disposal. All of the skills have a variety of different like morphs where you can change the way the skill operates, gives it new effects, sometimes gives it CCs. You can basically change and like morph the way that skills are. And I think it's really, really cool. You also have a lot of different choices. You also have access to these gems that you can put into your gear, which provide different bonuses. And this is a very, very intricate system to the game because the gems all have different colors. And based on like the number of a specific color gem that you have in your gear, you also get different bonus effect choices. Some augment your tankiness, some augment your damage. Sometimes it's specifically critical damage or healing or chance and more. And like I said, all these gems also just do give you some stats. And all these things that I mentioned just give you a ton of build variety and options, opening the door for some awesome character builds and customization. And overall, I think this is one of my favorite parts of the game and where I think Elyon has its most potential. The game also does have good spell and ability audio and visuals. I'm happy to say that most of the games I've played lately have done really well in the audio and visual department for the combat. Spell effects look great without being too flashy, and they have impactful audio overall to make them feel satisfying to press. However, while I do think the spells in Elyon overall look good, I do feel that the character models and parts of the game world do look a bit dated. And now, while graphics are not everything for a game, I think it's important to distinguish the realistic versus stylistic graphics. When your game has a certain artistic style, like say something like WoW, the realism doesn't matter as much because the game has a specific artistic style. However, when you start to go down kind of more like the roots of making your characters look more realistic, the quality of your graphics becomes much more important, and Elyons I don't think are bad, but they also aren't amazing. Now, in terms of performance, the game ran great on my PC, minus the server had some problems when I was trying my beta test, but outside of that like 30-minute time period where the servers kind of crashed, the game ran fantastic overall on my computer. When I first jumped in, performance wasn't the best, but I did some quick adjustments, altered some settings a little bit, and then from that point on, I had zero lag issues, no ability delay. The game just ran great for the rest of my play session. Now, those are some good things about the game, but now I want to move into some of my negatives. And the first one was, I think, a personal one for me, and I don't think everyone's going to feel this way, but the combat feels a bit clunky. My stream told me that if I ever had played Terra, which I have not, the game's combat's really similar to that, but since I've never played it, the combat style really took me some getting used to. It is action combat, of course, but the skills don't go off based off of where your reticle is like, pointing or facing, but rather the direction that your character is facing. So even if in combat you have your reticle facing a certain opponent and you start to kind of like walk to the left, your character will start attacking to the left. Personally, it's not a style of action combat that I'm used to, so it felt a bit awkward to me at first, but like I said, I started to get used to it in time. I was also told by stream that the class I chose to play for my closed beta test with the assassin in particular does feel more animation locked than other classes, which I think is why I have the opinion that, combat does feel a bit clunky, but I did want to mention it here. Overall, the combat was enjoyable, but like I said, definitely was not what I was used to from other action MMOs. Now, here is when I get to start to get into some of the more egregious cons, and there are two big ones that I'm definitely concerned about for Elyon's future. And the first one is the RNG endgame gearing. And I could already tell this is going to be something that is going to be incredibly annoying to deal with. The endgame gearing in Elyon is very similar to something like BDO in the respect that you have an RNG chance to enhance your gear and make it better. But gear has built into it the number of times that you're actually even able to enhance it. So you have to hope that the piece you're getting has a high number of enhance attempts in the gear piece so that you can make it more powerful. On top of that, you also have to hope that you're getting the right crystal slots. So, you know, if you want a piece of, you know, that you want in a piece of gear. So you have to hope that you get the right number of crystals, the right crystal colors. And so it just makes the whole endgame gearing process feel like you're just kind of like hoping for the best, you know? And, you know, obviously, if you've watched my channel, if you've watched me on Twitch, you know that I do love BDO, but the RNG enhancement system in that game is by far my least favorite part of the game, but I just ignore it entirely and buy all my gear outright off of the central marketplace. And if you're able to do that in Elyon as well, and this RNG can be ignored, I don't think it will be as bad. But if you're forced to deal with the RNG gearing elements, I could see it burning a lot of people out, because like I said, you have the actual RNG enhancing, you have to hope that you get a gear piece that has a high amount of even enhancement chances. It's like a chance to have a chance. And then you also have to have the right number of crystal slots and then the right crystal colors. So it's just a lot of different things at play and a lot of RNG involved in the gearing. My last con that I have is that if the game feels like it has a lot of mobile game mechanics. For PvE, there's a limit on the number of dungeons that you could run per day, and I believe at the moment it is capped at 4. And for players who really like dungeon, this is going to immediately throw a wrench in your fun by limiting how much PvE content you could actually participate in a given day. On the PvP side of things, they also have limited instance PvP via energy. So most PvP instance modes in Elyon, you're limited by like an energy bar that replenishes over time. This number goes down as you play, decreasing more when you win and less when you lose. And I guess that's to prevent how quickly people can like rise through the PvP leaderboards and ranks, but I don't know. I don't like to see mobile game energy or like elements and stuff like that thrown into what's supposed to be a fully fleshed out PC game. Now, one thing that I did not get to see in the first closed beta test was the cash shop. They didn't have access to it when we were playing the game. So unfortunately, I can't comment on that at this time. However, obviously, I feel that a more pay-to-win focused cash shop, especially considering that the PvP modes in this game have no caps, will definitely hamstring the game. If you can just swipe your credit card and have a better, you know, have a better chance at gear, more opportunities from your over your opponents to get gear, you'll be at an unfair advantage. And especially since this game has a lot of energy systems and limiters on how much of a specific type of content you can run, I'm really scared that they're going to sell energy or extra dungeon runs in the cash shop. But, you know, at this point, we'll just kind of have to wait to see what they actually decide to do. But in summary, I do think Elyon seems like a solid game with some potential, especially on the character building side of things. Anyone who's watched my channel for a while now knows I absolutely love character building and customization, and seeing the depth of character builds in Elyon is really, really cool. The game also has a ton of different PvP and PvE activities to do, which is awesome and gives everyone choice on what they want to do when they play Elyon. But there are definitely some aspects of the game I really dislike already. First off, the RNG gearing in the game is somehow worse than Black Desert. And look, I love BDO. And like I said earlier, the RNG gearing in that game, though, is one of my least favorite parts of the game, and I just straight up skip it. I just buy my gear outright. But this game appears to have even more RNG elements in its gearing system, and if I can't bypass that system by like buying gear directly off the game central marketplace for like, obviously, it'll be a higher currency price than if I was to RNG enhance it myself. But if I can't buy the gear, that alone, I think, will put me off the game, because there's a lot of RNG elements in trying to get geared. In addition, the game feels like it has a lot of mobile game elements to it, limiting the number of dungeons you can do per day and the amount of instance PvP you could actually take part in with systems like energy. So when you've burnt through your amount of instance energy for PvP and PvE for that day, you're left with either engaging in open world PvP or mob grinding. Now, I'll just be honest, I like the game's combat overall and do find it fun, but I don't know if I love it enough that I'll be able to just grind mobs for hours and hours on end for character progression like I do with BDO. Because BDO, it doesn't feel as bad because the combat's like super, you know, super cool, and I like the fighting style of combat in BDO, but with this game, I don't know if I'll be able to just grind for hours on end like I do in that game. And if the world PvP modes that we can engage in happen at like certain specific times of day, and unfortunately I can't find any information on if they do or don't, you might just be left at some points with no energy, no dungeons to run, no world PvP to participate in outside of just running into the enemy zone and just trying to kill people, and you're forced to either just grind mobs or log off. But overall, while I do think Elyon has potential, if the cash shop has a ton of pay to win in it and the game maintains its like mobile game elements, and the game maintains the level of RNG with the gearing with no way to circumvent it via like buying gear off the central marketplace, I do think the game will struggle to reach a wide audience outside of like a niche fan base, which I definitely do think it will have, but I think it will struggle to get a bit of a wide reach, but we'll have to see what the future holds. And overall, I'm looking forward, though, to see how the next beta test goes, and we'll definitely be looking into seeing if any of these things have been improved on, because while the game does have a lot of great aspects to it, it definitely has some things that I think will hamstring it from very, very wide-reaching success. But guys, with that being said, that is going to be it for me today. I want to know, though, what you think of Elyon, if you've had a chance to play the game yourself, if you tried the closed beta test, or just what you think from watching my footage or listening to what I said here today. Let me know in those comments below. And if you guys did like this video, I would appreciate if you left a like on it. And to keep up to date with Elyon and a ton of other MMORPG content, from beginner guides to first impressions to is it worth playing videos, please hit that sub button as well as the bell to keep those notifications on. But thank you all so much for stopping by today. I do very much appreciate it. As always, I'm Dots Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next one.